Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, because today we are unpacking something absolutely massive. We're exploring the fascinating contrast between just working for a paycheck and building true, lasting wealth. We're getting into the core philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's legendary book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this isn't just your standard list of financial tips. It's a profound, total shift in how you view the world, your career, and honestly, your entire bank account. So let's get started.
Now, let me ask you something. Does school actually prepare us for the real world? It's a huge question, right? And it challenges the very foundation of that old, tired advice we've literally all heard from our parents. Go to school, get good grades, get a safe, secure job. We're basically taught to follow this traditional path completely blindly. But does this system actually equip us for the brutal financial realities of adulthood? Or, does it simply train us to become obedient, hardworking employees? Well, Sharon Lechter, the co-author of the book, had this exact realization through her own son. He hit the nail right on the head when he pointed out that while the world has evolved at absolute lightning speed, our financial advice, it's been completely stuck in the past. Today, a good education and good grades absolutely no longer ensure success. He looked around at all these highly educated people who were just buried in debt, and he realized that following that traditional educational path often leads straight into a lifetime of financial struggle. He wanted to be wealthy, and he knew for sure that the old rules just wouldn't get him there.
Part 1. Two Fathers, Two Mindsets. So, growing up, Robert Kiyosaki had this incredibly unique advantage. He had two father figures shaping his worldview, and they had wildly different perspectives on money. His biological dad, who he calls Poor Dad, was highly educated but constantly struggled with finances. He'd often look at something and just sigh, declaring, "I can't afford it." But the father of his best friend, his rich dad, literally forbade those exact words. Instead, he demanded the boys ask, "How can I afford it?" It's amazing how a simple shift in your daily vocabulary can either completely shut down your financial genius or actively train your brain to find solutions. Saying you can't afford it is just mental laziness. Asking how forces your brain to work like a muscle.
Let's actually compare these two philosophies side by side. Poor Dad believed the love of money was the root of all evil. Rich Dad believed the lack of money was the root of all evil. Poor Dad said to play it safe. Rich Dad said, no, learn how to manage risk. But most importantly, and this is absolutely crucial, Poor Dad taught you to work for money, while Rich Dad insisted that money must work for you. As you can see, wealth is a mindset long before it ever becomes a bank balance. Choosing which father's advice you're going to follow is your very first step to financial independence.
Part 2. Escaping the rat race.
Okay, so what does it actually take to break out? Let's look at this absolutely hilarious but super revealing anecdote. 9-year-old Robert and his friend Mike decided they were going to literally make money. Rich Dad told them to use their heads to make money, so they took him entirely literally. They went around collecting used lead toothpaste tubes from the neighbors, melted the lead down over a fire in a metal pot, poured it into these little plaster molds, and began literally counterfeiting their own lead nickels right there in the driveway. Now, obviously, this was totally illegal and quickly shut down by Robert's real dad, but it showed incredible initiative. They were trying to create wealth, not just work an hourly job for it.
Recognizing that entrepreneurial spark, Rich Dad offered to teach them how to truly make money. But man, his teaching method was brutal. After the counterfeiting operation was busted, Robert started working at a convenience store for Rich Dad for a grueling 10 cents an hour. Every single Saturday, he spent 3 hours just dusting canned goods in the sweltering heat. I mean, it was miserable, tedious work for absolute pennies. Naturally, 9-year-old Robert got pretty angry. He wanted to quit, or at least demand a raise. But when he complained about the awful pay, Rich Dad taught him a really profound lesson. He said, life pushes you around, and quitting, or asking for a raise, that won't solve the core problem. Working for those meager pennies was actually a simulation. It was specifically designed to teach Robert exactly what life is like when you let fear and the desperate need for a weekly paycheck completely control your life's decisions.
And this brings us to the trap. The trap that catches almost everyone regardless of their high-level education or their massive salary. We call it the rat race. It's that endless cycle. Waking up, going to a job you might not even like, paying your bills, and doing the whole shebang all over again until you retire. And what actually keeps people locked in this trap? Unmanaged emotions.
So, how does this emotional trap actually work in practice? Well, first, the fear of not having money wakes you up and forces you out the door to work. Then, the second you get that paycheck, greed and desire instantly kick in, making you spend the money on a better car, a bigger house, or just new gadgets.
The ultimate illusion here is thinking that simply getting a raise will cure that underlying fear. But the reality? You just increased your spending to match your new income. You basically become like a donkey blindly chasing a carrot on a stick held by its master. And that carrot? That's just the illusion of money.
Part 3. The comic book business. Let's see how they get out of this.
To escape this emotional trap, Rich Dad did something truly radical. He offered to keep teaching the boys, but on one very specific condition. They had to keep working at his convenience store for absolutely zero pay. That's right, $0. No paycheck whatsoever. Now, I know, it sounds incredibly harsh, but it was actually a masterstroke. You see, by completely removing the distraction of a paycheck, by taking away the 10 cents an hour that was triggering all their fear and greed, their minds were finally freed up to think like true entrepreneurs. They were forced to look around, and when they did, they spotted an incredible business opportunity sitting right in front of them in that very store.
While working for free, Robert noticed the store manager throwing away the top halves of unsold comic books. So Robert went and asked the distributor if he could keep the discarded halves. With permission granted, the boys took over an empty basement room and literally opened their own comic book library. They charged neighborhood kids 10 cents for 2 hours of unlimited reading. They even went so far as to hire Mike's sister for $1 a week to manage the daily operations. So instead of working for money, they built a self-sustaining system that generated $9.50 a week, even when they were nowhere near that basement.
And this childhood epiphany beautifully captures the ultimate lesson of the whole book. The poor and middle class work for money, but the rich make money work for them. This was the exact, undeniable moment Robert and Mike shifted from an employee mindset to an investor mindset. They learned how to build the system that basically printed money for them, entirely independent of their physical labor.
Part 4. Assets versus liabilities.
Now, to truly make money work for you as an adult, we've got to learn the foundational vocabulary of financial literacy. It really all comes down to knowing the strict difference between two very simple financial terms. The first word is asset. And honestly, forget all the confusing accounting jargon for a second. An asset is simply something that puts money in your pocket, whether you work or not. An asset is your golden goose, just like that childhood comic book library, generating cash flow completely independent of your daily labor. We're talking real estate that pays rent, dividend-paying stocks, or a business you own but don't actively manage. Those are true assets.
On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, we have liability. A liability is simply something that takes money out of your pocket. The greatest financial tragedy, and frankly the main reason so many highly educated professionals constantly struggle, is that the middle class buys liabilities. Think massive, expensive houses and luxury cars on massive loans. They buy these things and mistakenly call them assets, but these things are draining money out of their pockets every single month in mortgages, taxes, and maintenance. If we map this out, a poor person's cash flow pattern is pretty straightforward. Income comes straight in from a job, and it funnels directly out through basic living expenses, things like food, rent, and taxes. There are absolutely no assets generating income here. And generally, there aren't massive bank liabilities either. The money just comes in and goes right back out just to survive. Conversely, if we look at the middle class pattern, it takes a higher income from a much better job and immediately dumps it straight into the liability column. They buy the bigger house, the new cars, they rack up credit card debt for consumer goods, and this creates a massive, constant outflow of cash just to pay off the debt and the taxes, leaving zero real assets in their portfolio. They might look wealthy because they own really nice things, but financially, they are bleeding out on the hamster wheel.
Now, what's truly brilliant about the rich is that their entire focus, their obsession really, is on building that asset column. They acquire real estate, stocks, intellectual property, and then those assets generate enough passive income to easily cover their minimal expenses and buy their luxuries. A rich person doesn't buy a luxury car with their salary, right? They buy a cash-flowing asset and the asset buys the luxury car. It is a completely different way of operating in the world.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look at your own life right now and be brutally honest with yourself. Is your money working for you, or are you working for it? Take a hard look at your cash flow. Are you actually building an army of assets that make you money while you sleep, or are you just collecting liabilities that you falsely call assets? Choosing your answer to that question is the very first step toward escaping the rat race and building a life of true, lasting financial freedom. Think about it.